Okay, are we live? Let's see. Yes, we are live. How's it look? Let's get people on here. Is anybody here? Not yet. So, just still checking on the stream. Just shared to Instagram, and hopefully that gets some people to join the stream. Looks like it's working. Hopefully that gets some people to join the stream. Looks like it's working. Okay, if anyone's here, comment in the chat, ask any questions. Yesterday was a ton of fun. I think we streamed for like an hour and a half. There was probably like 7 people consistently, and tons of questions, tons of discussion. If this audio is not working out or the video is not working out, please let me know in the chat. But I also I'm gonna try and stream at this time every day. During the week, if this doesn't work, and there's a better time, like suggest a better time, and I might do like a poll on my Instagram. But I yesterday streamed here at really early in the morning, like 6 a.m. and I thought that would be like a terrible time, but I think there was more people on then than there is now. But we'll see what happens. Also. I streamed live last night on my Instagram, and that was awesome, but it was very long. It was like I had to cut it short. It was like 3.5 hours, guys. And tons of questions. We didn't even, there were still people asking questions, and when I got off, the number of people watching was just continuing to go up, so it was hard to stop streaming. But it was I started at 9, which is what I want to do every night, and it just went on till I don't really know where to look still. I think right there. It still went on till 12:30. It was a lot. But let me see if I can get a link in my Instagram. Okay, good. Okay. Let's say link in bio to channel. Hopefully this gets some people engaged. Edit profile. YouTube. And then we can get started here. Theory of Every0ne. Copy link. And Cool. Okay. Hopefully that starts bringing some people. It took a little bit yesterday. Like, it took like an hour before people started like showing up. But I was just testing like all the streaming stuff and figuring it out, so it was fine. But it definitely took a little while, which is fine. You know, if nobody's here, talk to myself. Then you guys can watch it later if you want. But if, like I said, if there's a better time, also let me know. So. So, let's see this. Some of the things I wanted to talk about today were basically how this theory fits in to all the other theories that are out there. Because there's actually a lot of other theories, and they actually are, a lot of them are quite similar. I do think the key differences matter a lot, though, and that doesn't mean that anyone's wrong or right. Everybody's wrong and right. But one of the things that I've noticed, which is really unfortunate, is this. Yeah, if I look this way, then it works, I think. But one of the things that's unfortunate is everybody in this space, except really me, and like a couple other people, which is more recent, has been really avoiding talking to anyone else. And I understand like not wanting to sit down and compare notes. Like, I don't like to do that. A lot of you guys send me, stuff like, oh, let's compare notes, and personally it's not usually something I like to do. Send me whatever you want, I will take a look at it, but it doesn't mean that like I want to sit down and compare notes, just because my methodology is to build from what I've built, not to build from what other people have built. So, but one of the things is that there is this incentive, I guess, to not even acknowledge that there's other people. So, like, I've never heard Eric Weinstein mention Clee Irwin. I've never heard Clee Irwin mention Stephen Wolfram. That doesn't mean he hasn't, but like, they're all aware of each other, And I even once heard Eric Weinstein asked about Chris Langan once, and he was like, no comment. But Chris Langan, CTMU, is very accurate, and it's very similar to this, So it's probably the closest theory to this theory that exists, but this theory, unlike the CTMU, like Chris Langan's like almost too intelligent for his own good, because it's very hard for him to then bring things down to the level of being able to share. And I do believe that's possible. It's not so complicated that you can't make it digestible. So, but this is something that needs to start happening. Is people need to start acknowledging each other. You have people who academia purposely avoids anybody outside the mainstream, but then you have people who are kind of on this like fringe, like in between academia, but also, like, I don't want to say the cranks, because they're not cranks, but what people think are cranks. And so you have people like Stephen Wolfram and Eric Weinstein who are in between, like Nassim Haramein and Chris Langan, and these people have to start engaging a little bit with the people who are considered even further, outside of the mainstream. I understand you don't want to hurt your credibility, blah blah blah. Listen, the credibility is fake. There isn't a single person that understands geometric unity that's interested in it that's in the mainstream. None. And I talk to a lot of them, and they don't get it at all. And so it doesn't matter that they're interested. If they don't understand it, what's the point? It's fake interest. It's idol worship, really, is what it is. So, basically, this idea that, you have to preserve your credibility. No, be a decent person. Be careful with your words. And that's what it means to be, credible. You don't have to have a degree anymore. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing this. This would be a useless endeavor for me. I have nothing that is, no credentials. But I don't need credentials if I can predict better than others and I have the math to back it up that aligns it with what is currently known. So, I'm not a patent clerk. That's one set of credentials. But it's not the set of credentials that people are looking for. You know what I should have done, actually? I should have... How do I... Can I, description. This would be... I don't really know how this would be live. Theory of Every0ne live. What's the date? 24th 2-24-2021. And discussing theories of everything. Physics, philosophy, and theories of everything. Sentient Singularity.com. Cool. Okay. Hopefully that. Hey, how do you do today, my man? Pretty good. How are you doing? Were you on the live stream yesterday? Jace T? Like on Instagram or here? It's kind of lagging. It's not lagging. There is a delay. So it's like when people ask Neil Armstrong, how's it going up there? And it waits 4 seconds before anybody says anything back. This is how it is with me in the chat. So need to get used to that a little bit. But for anybody who is here, let me know how the audio is. Let me know how the video is. And, first one. Cool. Well, welcome. You, I think, are the first person to tune in. It took a little while for people to tune in yesterday, but once we got a group, it went on for an hour and a half of people talking. And the nighttime stream on Instagram was packed last night. I'm going to be trying to do these every day at 11 a.m. So if that works, cool, let me know. If there's a better time, I'm going to post a poll. But you can also message the chat, tell me if you think that this is not a good time. Some of you are saying good afternoon, some of you are saying good morning. So I know that people are spread across the land. So audio, video looks clean. My favorite field of math, geometry. Always. I failed algebra multiple times. But my true favorite field of math is Stephen Wolfram called it meta-mathematics, which is basically what I do. And it's not even a defined field right now. So, but it is essentially geometry in the most objective form, and there's meaning attributed to what you're seeing in the geometry. So I don't really know what's my favorite field of math. I didn't do well in math in school until like college, other than geometry. And then I like aced math in college. I did great, but it was the first time I ever did my homework. That matters. In learning languages and math, you have to do your homework. So, what brought people here? My Instagram, or did you see this pop up randomly and you just decided to see what it is? Let me know in the chat. I'm curious to see like where my audience comes from. Is it from like other people that I associate with? From the like political world, just let me know. But okay, so like I said at the beginning, I wanted to discuss how this theory of sentient singularity theory, which I probably should pull up, but if you haven't seen my website, I highly suggest checking it out. And at the bottom, you can sign up for my email list. If you weren't on the stream last night on Instagram, I explained that the patterns that I've discovered in sentient singularity theory apply to every field. So they have moral and sociological and political implications, and that basically guarantees me being censored on social media. So I highly encourage you to sign up for my email list. I don't send you anything. It's just in case I get banned. So and it's right here at the bottom, but I promise not to spam you. But I wanted to kind of discuss like how everyone's theory in this space kind of just is similar but also different. So if any of you are coming in from like physics and that's where your interest came from, then you might know Clea Irwin, Eric Weinstein, Stephen Wolfram, Nassim Haramein, Robert Edward Grant, Chris Langan. Like, I want to discuss these people's theories a little bit because they're not discussing with each other, so we're just going to like bypass them. Because I think it's important to... They all want to ignore the other guy because everybody wants to be the one with the theory. And everybody's theory is very similar. And everybody's done such great work. Like, you honestly don't want, or I don't want, to never... acknowledge Clea Irwin if geometric unity is the name that we end up going with, or never acknowledge, Stephen Wolfram if, we end up going with, Clea Irwin's emergence theory, or never acknowledge those guys if we go with sentient singularity theory. It's like it's important to acknowledge everybody's work and to discuss it because there are some differences and they're important. You found me through an Instagram ad, and I thought, this is dumb, but I was very impressed with the amount of effort you put into work. So now here I am. Sweet. That's like the best thing is like when people are like, change their mind, because it shows that you're thinking. And if you just like love sacred geometry and stuff, that's cool. But like, if you come from an analytical perspective that's not so linked to that stuff, and then you see these theories in the direction that they're going, which all of them are going the direction of consciousness being fundamental to existence, and you start to change your mind because you see the truth in it, that's cool, because it just shows that you're thinking. Okay, I discovered you through Instagram, quickly realized that you are into a lot of the same things as me. Martial arts, philosophy, physics. Also agree with your political perspective. That's always good, because I do wonder, like, for anybody listening, like, I worked for PragerU for a really long time, and I ran all their ads, and I was like pretty involved in the political world, and I have, like, it's pretty easy to like get mad at that if you look at my media, I guess. But my opinions on a lot of that stuff is actually very different than a lot of my feelings on it all is very similar to a lot of, that perspective, but my prescriptions for fixing politics is very different from pretty much what anybody is discussing. Like nobody is discussing how to fix anything, from student loans to, super controversial issues. Nobody has any good ideas, but Sentient Singularity has a lot of good ideas, and we're going to get into it. So, like I said, this is only my second stream, so bear with me while I learn how to do this. But this is kind of like a very important, very simple model for understanding the periods of growth in Sentient Singularity Theory. And I call it basically like the United Quantum Force Assembly. And it is just showing the relationships between the various levels or periods of growth that occur in what we observe as the material universe. So you can see here that a hadron, which is a proton or a neutron, is an assembly of quarks. And a quark, which I call force points, are actually assemblies of information and energy. An atom is an assembly of hadrons. A molecule is an assembly of atoms. A cell is an assembly of molecules. An organism is an assembly of cells. A family is an assembly of organisms. A caste is an assembly of families. And a technological singularity, also called a nation, is an assembly of castes. And this is the objective growth periodicity of the universe. I'm pretty sure it lines up with something in mathematics called Bott periodicity, which is what these weird symbols are, where basically everything is going through loops, which is really what you're seeing is it's the universe tying knots within knots. But, they'll say it's loop space, right here, loop space. But it's knots within knots to form consciousnesses within consciousnesses. And everything here is a consciousness. It's not unconscious. So I discussed kind of yesterday, like, this idea of, like, this is how lost science is. It's so frustrating because when people are like, oh, what's wrong with science? Don't believe the science. It's like, the science knows almost nothing. Like, we learned some stuff about, we've learned a lot of, like, computing engineering, but that's pretty much it over the last, like, 40 years. Prior to that, we learned a lot of material science, and but we, in that period, lost a very key perspective that allowed us to make sense of it all. So, basically, now we're sitting there here asking stupid questions like, when and how did life start in the universe? Guys, life has never not existed. It didn't start. An atom is alive. It is alive. It's not woo, it's not nonsense. It is alive, and it follows the same exact patterns as we do. Like, if you're a man, I spoke about this on my stream yesterday. If you're a man, you are a proton. You're not like a proton. You are a proton. And if you're a woman, you aren't like a neutron. You are a neutron. And if you get married, that is a nucleus. It is a nuclear family, as we like to call it. It is literally a nucleus of an atom. It's not like it, a nucleus of an atom. It is a nucleus of an atom. You can see these patterns as being true when you look at isotopes. So I discussed this a little bit yesterday, but when you look at, I had this prediction like, okay, well, if an atom is, if this is repetitive, sorry, but like I know there's new people here, but I had said, if an atom is a marriage, then it would follow the same patterns as marriage. So I was like, okay, how do I test this? And I looked at isotopes, and because I made this prediction that there would be, most of the time you'd have one proton and one neutron, one man and one woman. And then in certain instances you would have more neutrons than protons. So you'd have like 3 wives and 1 husband. And but there would be no instances where there were more protons than neutrons, ever. Because that is an unstable union, and it falls apart and, degrades into entropy. And when I looked at the isotopes, this was entirely true. There is not a single isotope where there's more protons than neutrons other than helium-3, and helium-3 has 1 proton, no neutrons, so it doesn't even count. It's not a union. So it's literally, guys, an atom is a marriage. And if you're a man, you're a proton, and if you're a woman, you are a neutron. You're not like a proton and a neutron. You are. You need to evolve past this, attributing everything as woo or something. It's just BS. I discovered you through Instagram. Okay, martial arts. What is your opinion on ethnogens? I don't know what that is. I'm gonna Google it. I Google so many things from you guys throughout these streams. I've noticed you guys are always asking me questions. I don't know what they are. Psychoactive substance. Okay, so psychedelics. I have taken a little bit of psychedelics when I was in college. I didn't have any profound experiences that were life altering. They were good. I think that mushrooms is very good for treating depression. I think, actually, and I never used mushrooms twice in my life, and so I'm not into hallucinogens in any kind of serious way. But I didn't have any theological theophanies, I guess, and I've never done DMT, but I wanted to. And then I spoke about it a little bit yesterday, but I don't like to get too into it right now. Yesterday was the first time I've ever mentioned it publicly, but I had a DMT experience once when I was in the shower thinking about the universe, 4 years ago, and I was sober. I was not on any drugs. I was thinking about the simulation hypothesis and how we're a universe within a universe within a universe within a universe, and I saw it, and then all of a sudden it was total out of body experience. And it was everything you could hope for from a DMT trip, but cleaner. And so after that I had no desire to do DMT because I got that. But so I don't think that, so to your question, what is my opinion on it? I think that they can be tools. Tools can be misused, but they can also be used productively. And I also don't think that it's necessary to seeing this, because even people that do those, they'll come to some conclusion that consciousness is really central to everything, but then they won't take it further than that, because it's almost like you're achieving unearned knowledge, and maybe you can earn that back by internalizing what you've witnessed, but I don't think a lot of people do. So that doesn't mean you can't, but that's my opinion on it. But what about atoms with more than 1 proton and neutron? It's still within the neutron. There are paired protons and neutrons within it. So it's like a household. It's like a multi-family household almost. It's really what it is. It's like a little mini multi-generational household. Okay. Also, uranium-238, the most common isotope of uranium, has 146 neutrons and 92 protons. Exactly, it's more neutrons than protons. You're going to find it every time. And this is true of marriage too, guys. The pattern, there's only one pattern. If you're going to discuss the theory of everything, there's only one pattern. And the theory of everything is I have it on my my website, is a unified theory or theory of everything is a recognizable, predictable, and describable pattern that occurs in all instances of objective observation and an explanation for such a pattern. That last part is very important, and everybody leaves that out. But I don't. And I call that explanation God. You don't have to, but it's important to recognize that it is an eternal singularity of sentience that was not created but always existed and then created everything else. That's you can call it whatever you want. You don't have to go to church or go to synagogue or go to mosque or be Muslim or Christian or Jewish or Buddhist or anything like it. This is not about religion. This is about mathematical logic and truth. Like, this is the only way to explain everything from why is the universe spinning to why do we see the, charges and, spins of the fermions. Like, it explains everything. Maybe the extra neutrons represent single people. It's possible. There is a place, by the way, for single people. But I would say that, and this is going to be controversial, so if you get angry, sorry, but also know that there's no judgment in this chat. Unless you tell me that you just, stole something, or hurt someone, there's no judgment in this chat. So, but from what I can see, it does appear that marriage is not a choice that we can just make. It is a responsibility that we have if you are attracted to the opposite sex. If you are not attracted to the opposite sex, then you do have a different role. And it is entirely necessary. Everyone is necessary. Everybody has a role. And this pattern, I'm hoping, helps people find meaning. Everyone, whether or not you are attracted to the opposite sex or not, but I will say that if you are attracted to the opposite sex, it is a moral responsibility to get married. And that's really hard to hear these days because we've been told that it's just a choice. But for literally eons, we've been told it's a responsibility. And we, even before this in religion, people say, marriage is a creation of God. It's not a creation of man. Guys, if atoms are a marriage, it's a creation of the sentient singularity. It's not a creation of us. But think about what would happen if you look at this, okay? So let's say we're here, and we're at organism or assembly of cells. We need all of these levels above to form. You can't do that if they're not built on this, which is marriage. Imagine what would happen if hadrons, protons, and neutrons were just you know what? I'm not going to form stable bonds anymore with, with each other. We're just going to kind of hang out every now and then, and we're going to break apart. We'll go find other neutrons that we like. And this does happen over very long periods of time, kind of, but it's not something that, it's not what happens. If you don't have protons and neutrons forming the nucleus of an atom, you're never going to get molecules, you're never going to get cells, you're never going to get you and me and other organisms and our dogs and cats and chickens and goats. And if you don't form marriages, we're not going to have castes in the society, and we're not going to have a nation, which is a technological singularity, which this whole process is literally the replication system of the organism that is a universe. It's coming from a universe, and it's right here, and it's going to another universe, and that will form another universe, just like a human comes from another human and forms another human, and then that forms another human. This universes are conscious sentient beings. They are the level above us that we can observe, and they reproduce, and just like we do. And just like we need molecules and atoms and in order to have molecules and cells in order to reproduce, they do too, but we are the cells. So this isn't like a religious statement when I say that it's a responsibility. It's not a political ideology. This is the danger of a true theory of everything, is it has implications across all fields. And that includes morality. And I understand, like, if you're a man, it's not your nature to settle down. If you're getting sex before marriage, it's not your nature to settle down. But it's partially our responsibility to take control of our own nature and be like, okay, well, this is what my instincts are telling me, but you know what? I'm going to do what is objectively the right thing. And that's true in every circumstance. If you want something that belongs to somebody else, you don't just take it. You have to control yourself. So, okay. So your God is not the traditional biblical God. Your God is the collective consciousness of all life. They're the same thing. The biblical God is the collective consciousness of all life. The Torah, which is the first 5 books of the Bible, is a mathematical matrix. When it's kosher, it has to be a scroll, because what it is if it's in the form of a book, you can't look at it as a mathematical matrix, but it's a mathematical matrix. Every letter has this number, and I look at those patterns sometimes, and they line up with my work and with science. Like, I can show it to you right here, actually. This is why people say that the Bible is divinely inspired. When you look at the math of it, it's amazing. And I don't think it was us that, like, made it. I think that we didn't even know what we were doing, and the collective consciousness of all life, as you call it, that made it. But if you look at what is it? Okay, so there's this is Yud He Vav He, and if you're into like sacred geometry or stuff like that, then you know what this is. But this is the name of God, or the hint at the name of God, essentially. But it's really the hint at it's the structure of the structure of God. And what it is it's a spin cycle. Okay, so a Yud, this is all Hebrew. Yud and a He and a Vav and a He. It's a spinning object. It's like Yud He Vav He. If that makes any sense. You can see that it's kind of like spinning. It's like Yud He Vav He. And I was like, okay, well, that means it goes back to Yud. So what I did was, I was like, okay, well, it's Yud He Vav He Yud. So I added another Yud. What's interesting is when you take this, these are the gematria values, these 10, 5, 6, 5. By the way, that lines up with DNA, patterns in DNA. So it's not, 10, 5, 6, 5 is a pattern in DNA. You get 36, which is 360. It is a complete rotation. And when you take it and you get the average, you get 7.2. 7.2 is 720. There's 720 degrees of rotation in the fermions in physics. This is a spinning object, is what this is describing. And people think that it's, just, old nonsense, but it's not old nonsense. That doesn't mean that our human interpretations of the Bible are always correct. They're not. But this is, you can see right here, 720 degrees of rotation in my verse model is an inevitability, and that's true in our observation of the spin structure of the fermions, or the matter particles of the universe. They are the same thing. if there's only one pattern, guys, there's only one pattern. This is going to destroy the separation between religion and not religion. I hate the term religion. Religion and science. I hate the term science too. Like, I just like the term truth. There's many different sources of truth that you can go to, and you can search externally. That's through the scientific method. You can search internally through explorations of consciousness and faith. I don't even like the term faith because I'm not faithful. I'm aware of the existence of the sentient singularity or God. I don't have faith that it exists. I know it exists. But you can see here, it's people say that, there's gravity waves. It's like, look at the waves, guys. These are waves. They're periods, and I showed you those periods of growth before. When you put them into the verse model, that's what this is right here. So you can see a hadron is an assembly of quarks, an atom is an assembly of hadrons, a molecule is an assembly of atoms, a cell is an assembly of molecules, and keeps going on. You have to get here to technology, which is an assembly of castes, in order to restart the system and create another universe. And that means that you have to have every single part of this all connected. All the information from the start to the finish has to be entangled. And it has to be there. You can't just stop building in the center just because it's more fun to, be hedonists or something like that. And I'm not saying become like a religious fanatic or a monk or anything. I'm just saying, if there's a universal pattern and you're interested in that, there are implications that you have to confront, which are all of a sudden there's all these separations between biology and psychology and sociology and technology and morality. They are all gone. If there's only one pattern, there's only one pattern, and that's it. So, see how the chat's doing. How many people are still with us? Okay. Any explanation for the Big Bang? Why is the universe constantly expanding? Fascinating question. Okay. So, the universe is, it is expanding like you expand when you are born as a baby and you're growing. Okay? So, when a baby's born, it's like this big. And, as you grow up, you get bigger and you expand. This is what's happening to the universe. And the Big Bang was actually a conception. It was literally a conception. Just like you had a... It's pretty funny because what we call the Big Bang was actually the conception, which is actually formed by a Big Bang, if you get what I'm saying. But it's a universe is a living being that we're inside. A sentient, thinking, feeling being, like you and me. And that it wasn't an explosion, it was a conception. And it is expanding because it's growing. And we see in relativity, which is a lie, it's not a lie, but it's emergent, it's not fundamental. We see it as expansion, which it is, but it's actually growth. So, does it make sense? I hope so. This was something that I've thought a lot about a long time ago, and people haven't asked me what's about the universe constantly expanding. That's a very important observation to think about. People ask about the Big Bang all the time, but I'd say a Big Bang led to a big conception, and then that's what started the universe. But we are literally, the simulation theory or the simulation hypothesis is the truth. So, but it's also not. That doesn't make it fake. When people are like, "Is it a simulation?" It's like, what is a simulation? The real question, if you're wondering if it's real, the questions are, am I real? And are the people around me real? If the answer to both of those questions is yes, then it's all real. But we are running on a simulation of a universe running on a quantum computer in the previous civilization that's also a simulation of the universe running on a quantum computer in the previous, what Roger Penrose calls an aeon, but I call it a verse. But you could call it the observable universe. So it's just this continuous cycle. So biological cells are to us what we are to the universe. Yes, basically. Yeah. We are the cells. You know, I have this video on my YouTube channel on this one, and it's called God is an Irrational Number. And it starts off of like, you know, this red blood cell walks up to this white blood cell, and he's like, do you believe in humans? And the white blood cell's like, no. And red blood cell's like, well, why not? And he's like, well, I've never seen one. Well, that doesn't mean humans aren't real. It just means like you can't see one. You're in one. How are you going to see it? It's like people are like, I've never seen evidence of God. It's like, really? Maybe. And by the way, I was an atheist till this work. I started this work. And like, for those of you that don't know, this was an accident. I was trying to understand artificial intelligence to see whether or not it was going to kill us all, enslave us all, or free us all from our own, you know, problems. And I ended up trying to map the structure of consciousness, and it ended up being the pattern that was everywhere. And I was like, oh, I think I found something. And then here we are. I didn't try and do this. It was an accident. But yeah, we are inside of, you know, the universe. And just like your cells are inside of you. The universe is an assembly, and we are, just as we are an assembly, and even cells are an assembly of molecules. And molecules are an assembly of atoms, and atoms are assembly of hadrons, and hadrons are assembly of force points, which are quarks. And then quarks are assemblies, or force points are assemblies of information and energy. And then that is being moved by the universe itself from the outside. So, like, from that, you jump up. You don't go down again. That's the lowest level. So, but I mean, it's interesting because this right here is the these are the fermions, okay? The quarks, the leptons, which is electrons and neutrinos, and positive or masculine quarks, as I call them, or negative quarks. And I say that this is all about perspective, and people are like, oh, no, it's not. And I'm like, dude, look at the quarks. Like, up, charm, top, truth, down, strange, beauty, bottom. These are all perspectives. Like, they're labeled already. Like, what are you talking about? This isn't about perspective. Even somehow, like, we knew this. When you look at the charges and the spin, you can see that there's this 2/3, 1/3 pattern, and you can also see that there's this binary pattern. And when you take the charge and the spin and you add them up, you can see that, you know, it's 1 and 1.33, and when you sum all the charges and all the spins, you can see down at the bottom, hopefully, I don't know if you actually can or not, but over here, can you guys see it? I don't know. But at the bottom, the sum is 1 and 1/3, 1.33333333, repeating. This lines up with, you know, certain patterns in religion, but it also lines up with my creation structure, that basically you start with 1 and 0 and infinity. These zeros represent, like, this isn't one. This 0 represents infinity. So part of the problem, somebody asked me, like, what's my favorite field of mathematics? And part of the problem with our current mathematics is that it is literally been structured to be practical within relativity. And that makes it unable to describe objectivity. And there's one way to fix this. Well, there is a way to fix this. It's like a couple things that are necessary. And what has to happen is you have to recognize that zero in relativity is nothingness. So like if you have 0 apples, you have nothing. You have no apples. But nothingness doesn't exist in objectivity. There's only somethingness. And so 0 actually represents infinity in objective mathematics, or meta-mathematics as I would call it. And it also represents 1 at the same time. So 0 is a superposition between 1 and infinity. There is no such thing as nothing in objective mathematics. So like now when you divide any number by 0, it's no longer undefined like your calculator tells you. It's actually infinity. So 9 divided by infinity is infinity. 1 divided by infinity is infinity. Infinity divided by infinity is 1. And so this is very important to understand. And the other thing that's important to understand in objective mathematics is that numbers have objective meaning. So like when people are like, seems like numerology. You say that 4 is the number of stability? Seems like numerology, bro. It's just true. It is logically inevitable that numbers have meaning in objectivity. 4 is the number of stability. It is. You can see it even in entanglement structures. You can see that, everything has 4, degrees of freedom. Even our space-time model, which is not fundamental. But the actual model of what is fundamental is still 4. And there's 4 wheels on a car because it's stable. There's 4 limbs on you because it's stable. In the center of my verse model, it has 4 as the count. And it starts at 4. And it ends at 4 when you look at right here. And it's built from the quantum of consciousness, and it's because at 4 you get a self-reflection, which is when a 3x3 grid, which is this, and this is all calculating, just so you know. I just screwed that up, but it's not me just putting in numbers. Okay, it starts with 1, and then it just symmetrically calculates. And you get 3, 6, 9 here, and 12, 6, 2, and then the 9 plus 24 is 33. And even then, if you've ever seen Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, you take 33, which is the information that's calculated, from the structure, and you add it to the structure that calculated it, which is the count, which is 9. You get 42. And I have a video on my YouTube channel explaining what this is and how this essentially represents wisdom. And this 33 represents self-awareness. And it's because when a 3x3 grid, which is this, looks at itself in the mirror, what it sees is 3x3. And you can write that off as a coincidence, but there's no such thing as randomness, no matter whether or not there is a God or no God. And if it's just math or it's math and consciousness, it doesn't matter. There's no such thing as randomness. I call this an extra arithmetic symmetry. It is not meaningless. It means everything. And, when a 3x3 grid looks at itself in the mirror, it sees 3x3. And this structure ends up, translating into, the verse model, which is this that I examine in every which way here. Because I can see that it is, it's the most beautiful mathematical object in existence because it is the universe. The DNA is encoded into this, and 432, if you're into that, is encoded into this. 42 is encoded into this as well. It's crazy. The 64 tetrahedron grid is encoded into this. Which is, the spaces between this. So how I made this shape was if this is the building block and it's a 9, cube of 9, I decided to to create symmetry, I did 9 by 9. And I was like, okay, this is a gas, this is a liquid, this is a solid. And in a solid, you have 4 degrees of entanglement. So this one cube is entangled with this one, and this one, and this one, and this one. And you can see how it locks each one in place, literally like a solid would. And it is the number of stability. It's not just numerological. I don't want to say astrology or numerology as if they're nonsense. I don't think we understand them. I think a lot of people are just into it, and they can kind of intuit that there's something there, but it doesn't mean that every palm reader is going to tell you the truth. It just means that there is something to these structures. Like Leonardo da Vinci and all these people were into astrology. They were far smarter than our scientists that we have today. Like, they weren't just far smarter, they were leaps and bounds ahead. And they believed in God. They read the Zohar, which is a Jewish book of mysticism and Kabbalah. Like, they also were, the creators of what we call modern mathematics. So this idea that, like, oh, we're so wise, those people were just superstitious morons. They also created modern mathematics. It's like that. People need to back up and have some humility a little bit. We don't understand it all. So, okay, very interesting perspective. Can't stay any longer, but I'll definitely tune in the future. You might enjoy Lex Friedman's interviews on YouTube. I know Lex Friedman's interviews. I love his interviews. They were really good. His one with Eric Weinstein recently was great, like truly great. I love listening to them talk. I hope to talk to Lex about AI because, like, I will tell him things about AI that nobody else talks to him about for the most part. Nazir Mathematica, hi, how's it going? Your remodel reminds me of the Sri Yantra slightly. Yeah, I think I know what that is. Yeah, it is that, by the way. Like, that's exactly what it is. It's also the Star of David, and so, like, I showed some of you the E8 Particle Explorer yesterday, and people are like think that these, this is E8, and you can like spin it around, and you can see 6, or you can spin it this way, and you can split it up into a triality or a trinity, whatever you want to call it. But it's really a duality across. It's 2 degrees of freedom reflecting across an intrinsic constraint. So, like, that's what it is. But this matches up with this right here, which is this right here. This is I want to see you guys. This is the 64 tetrahedron grid that was discovered by Nassim Haramein, and it is the scaffolding that holds up my verse model. So, like, my verse model is what is being held up together by this. It's what is missing from this model. And this is like the scaffolding holding up the house, or this is like the frame of the house. And my verse model is like the walls and the windows and everything like that. But what's interesting about this structure is that, I showed you when you split up my verse model into solid, liquid, and gas, and you look at the gaps. There's 64 gaps, no matter how you look at it. It's when you look at this right here. So you see this? Wait till I can see that you guys see it. So, this pattern at the top of this, the 64 tetrahedron grid, is literally right here. Do you see that? It's the same pattern. Because E8 is a way of looking at 64 tetrahedron grid, and it's also my verse model. So, here, let me show you. This is fascinating. So, make sure that I'm not on this still. There we go. Okay. So when we look at this, we can see that there's essentially eight periods of growth. Okay, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then this is the start and this is the finish, and they're really the same, which is interesting because this is 1 and this is 1 and 0. So it's still 1 and 1. It's the same thing. You can see assembly of information and energy, assembly of information and energy. But between it, you have these growth periods. And there is 8 of these periods in E8. That's why it's called E8. And it has dimension 248. So like when you divide 248 by 8, you get 31 in each. And what's fascinating about this is that when I was examining prime numbers, and I examined like all prime numbers to 1,000,000. I still do it. Like if I ever start doing that, I get so lost in it. If there's one thing that like takes me out of reality, I mean, maybe it puts me in reality, but it's that. So this is my prime differences chart. So let's expand it out so it's easier for you guys to see. Whoa. Okay. So what I did was I took prime numbers to a very high amount, not to completely, but to a very high amount. And what I did then was I took the difference between the prime numbers, and then I took the difference between the difference. And what I found was that when I looked at the differences between the prime numbers, these are the differences listed out. So there's some prime numbers have one difference, which is literally just the difference between 2 and 3. That's the only instance of one difference of prime numbers. But then some are separated by 2, some are separated by 12, 20, 18, 40, and it just keeps going. But what's interesting about it is it goes up to 64, and then it jumps 8 to 72. 72 is the number of, complete rotation. It's 720. And 64 is the number of, the tetrahedrons in the tetrahedron grid. And that's not a coincidence at all. I mean, there's no such thing as coincidence. But when we look at this, we can see that there's, when you then look at basically when I took the differences between those differences, okay, so like the difference between 6 and 8 and 10 and 12 and 14 and 16, you get 2 every single time, except it starts 1 and 1, and then it goes 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, and then it ends, and then it jumps to 8, okay? There are 31 instances of 2 degrees of freedom in the differences between the differences in prime numbers. You can see down here, if not, I'll tell you, there are 31 as the count. 31 instances of 2 as the difference between the differences in prime numbers. There's 2 instances of 1, there's 31 instances of 2, and then there's 1 instance of 8. And there's actually, it goes up, and there's 1 instance of 14, I think, after that. But prime numbers all the way up to 1,000,000. Pretty sure there's only 14 after that, but I have to double check that. But it's very high. You have to go very high after that to get there. And even that makes sense. But this is interesting because when you look at E8 and you take 248 and you divide it by 8, you get 31. 8 times. And when you look at Robert Edward Grant's irrational number rotational symmetry within irrational numbers that lets you like jump into a stream of irrational numbers without having to calculate it to that specific number. So if you wanted the 10,000th digit of pi, you could just use this chart that he made that is 31. It's like a clock, but with 31 hours. And you use this chart that basically like tells you what digit would be at that point in the stream. It lets you like jump into a stream without calculating it. This is another symmetry with this work as well that I found. And I am planning, I've talked to him about it, doing a stream with Robert Edward Grant. And this is one of the things I want to talk to him about, is this instance of the number 31. And even when you look at my verse model as well, you can see that, where is it? Right here. It's, when you're looking at symmetries here, I'm examining all these symmetries. 31 is the sum here out from the center. And on the other side, you get, 29 is the sum here. 31 is the sum if you include the center. But 29 is the sum from the center. So the sum from the center here is 31. And these two, 31 and 29, are twin prime numbers. So the universe is built between these two twin prime numbers. And then when you include the center, you get 33 here and 31 here, which is also very interesting considering the fact that, you know, this is built from that quantum of consciousness model that, you know, a self-reflection is represented in it with by the number 33. So you can see this is 31 and 29 and 29 and 31. And this can also be 33 when you incorporate the center, same with this. And then when you look across here, this is either 32 or 33 when you know, depending on if you don't include the end or not. Basically, it's 32, but that's half of 64, and it's just basically showing like kind of where the 64 tetrahedron grid is kind of starting to manifest. But here you see 36, which is half of a complete rotation. So like when you rotate one complete rotation, you do a 360, which for the universe that's half of its entire rotation, because you have to do a 360 to rotate completely, and the universe has to do a 360 to rotate completely. And after that happens, you've chased your own tail, the universe has chased its own tail, and now the universe has been examined and observed from the inside out and from the outside in, which leads it to completeness. But because we're subjective, we can only look around completely as like essentially 360. But we can see, though, instances of 720. So basically, if you watch Eric Weinstein on Joe Rogan, he does this thing called the Philippine wine glass challenges, essentially. So he puts some liquid into a cup. I'll do it actually. Put some water into a cup, and you have to rotate the cup 360 degrees without spilling it. So in order to do this, you have to rotate it. around this direction, and then you have to come back through yourself. Okay, like a hop vibration or a Klein bottle or a Penrose stairs, essentially. And this takes the law of gravity into effect in order to like observe. It's pretty good water. And I noticed that it also works with a fidget spinner. So a fidget spinner rotates, 360 degrees as it spins around. But when you spin it, you get a gyroscopic action. So when you move it around, you start to feel like it kind of like wants to force you to stay in a specific position. And in order to maneuver it without having any resistance, you spin it just like the ball, just like the glass. You spin it 360 degrees, you come back through yourself. And you have zero resistance when you do that. But if you try and do it any other way, you can feel that it's kind of like tugging on you to try and stay in one spot. And both of these little tests take advantage of the law of gravity and show that, like, from an objective standpoint, the universe is going through 720 degrees of rotation. And but it also shows that in order to do so, there is an aspect of it that has to do with coming back through your own self, which is obvious if it's consciousness. Spinning a staff is really awesome for these reasons. Yes, I have my staff right over there. When I first started doing this stuff, part of my meditation was just to walk and pace and just spin this staff around. And I didn't do it consciously. I was just practicing martial arts and staying active. Kind of like doing some little very minute workouts just by constantly moving. And I ended up thinking about spin and reach and impact and effect and all kinds of stuff. It is very true. Do I have an art crystal? No, I don't. I don't really know much about them. I've looked into them a bit. Nassim Armain is brilliant. I can't tell you if they work. I wouldn't be surprised, but I also don't understand it. So I can't really Nassim Armain calculated the mass of a proton, more accurately than CERN measured it, and he also came up with the 64 tetrahedron grid, which is the scaffolding of my verse model. So I know that guy's no joke, but I have no idea if the art crystals work, and I know nothing about them other than they're made of quartz and magnets, and they supposedly make plants grow better. But I've looked into it, but I don't have them. They're very expensive, and I don't know how well they work, and I don't have that kind of money. Let's see. Looking at any other questions. This is awesome to have you guys on here. I know it seems to be a smaller audience at this time than it was yesterday at 6 a.m., which I was expecting 6 a.m. to suck. But 6 a.m. this time is actually 9 a.m. Eastern time, so it might be better. But if is this an ideal time? Comment in the chat if you are here and you think that this is a good time or that there could be a better time. And if there is a better time, what do you think that time would be? Is it 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time? Would that be better for everyone here? Because I want, this to be working for people. These streams go on very long, and I understand why it's kind of and they start slowly, and because of that, at least right now they start slowly. It's kind of hard to tune into those post-stream and have it hold your attention until shit really starts moving, which sometimes takes 30 minutes to an hour right now. But this is also my second day doing this. I think if I do this every day for the next week or two, we're gonna have 5 to 10 times as many people tuning into the live streams. And it's going to grow dramatically. But this is the only way for me to create content every day. And it's also way better because I can interact with people and answer questions and show you what I'm working on in real time a bit, which, lately has been my my visual summary, which is like, I saw that, Stephen Wolfram has a visual summary, so I figured I'd copy him. Not really, but I thought it was a good idea to try. There's so much to this that I wanted to try. I keep trying to make like different ways for people to get the overall gist of it in a number of different ways without having to watch a 3-hour video. I think that's important. But as you can see, E8 is part of this, and so that means Garrett Lacey's kind of like ideas are part of this. This is a subjectively chiral, which means like it's not symmetrical, which is like when I put a line through it, you can see it's kind of like off center when you get to the bottom. It's subjectively chiral or emergently chiral. But when we're looking at it from the top down, which is really from the center out, it is objectively symmetrical, which is exactly what you would want in the universe model to look like. And it's just that, physics says the universe is chiral. It's chiral from a subjective perspective because it's chiral from an emergent perspective, and chirality or asymmetry is actually just a manifestation of directionality. So because the universe is spinning, it looks asymmetrical, but it's actually not. It is symmetrical, but it's objectively symmetrical, and we view it subjectively because we're inside it. So like we see everything as emergent. We see things relativistically, but really it's symmetrical from the center out. But we're not viewing it like that. But like geometric unity is going to show this. Geometric unity is going to also include the idea that there's 2 degrees of freedom and 1 intrinsic constraint, and that's what gives rise to like past, present, future, and the primary colors and the secondary colors, and all these instances of 3 that we see are actually 2 degrees of freedom and 1 intrinsic constraint. So it's going to replace space-time with the observerse, which I think I modeled. I can't say for sure because I didn't come up with the term observerse, but Eric Weinstein did, and if this is wrong and not his observerse, he can tell me one day and I'll take it back, but I'm pretty sure that I'm right. But this is my model of the observerse, and I can think it's good, like I said, to keep the terms that people come up with if it's a good term. If we don't end up going with geometric unity and we call it sentient singularity theory instead, but we say that space-time is basically emergent from the observerse pattern, and we take we replace space-time with an observerse, so we use his theory for that, and we go and we realize that it's all E8 is a shadow of a quasi-crystal from Clear Irwin and Garrett Lacey's theory. It's like all these people have something to offer, and you don't take all from one and none from the other. Like, this is why I wanted to talk about how my theory relates to other people's. And it's not that I took from other people, it's just that if there's only one truth and multiple people find it, multiple people are going to find the same pattern. So that's when it happened. This is the reality of space-time. It's the interaction between the consciousness that we're in and us. So we would be the bottom, and our degrees of freedom are our previous location and our new location, but we're always in our current location, which is a subjective constraint. And our objective constraint that comes from outside of us is time. We have no control over it, but we're always in it. When from the universe's perspective, the objective constraint is space because it is space, so it can't move through space because it is space. So it's stuck in itself. And its degrees of freedom are past moment and future moment. So it maneuvers in time. We maneuver in space. And space-time is the same medium, but it just depends on whether or not you're looking at it from the outside in or the inside out. If you're looking at it from the inside out, you see it as space. If you're looking at it from the outside in, you see your maneuverability as within time. And this bottom one is within the one on top. And like this is the observer's model. It's 14-dimensional observer. So you can see there's 4 dimensions here, 4 dimensions here, and there's an interaction matrix space essentially. And then you can see that this 4 is the sum here, and this 4 is the sum here. And this is the reality of dimensions. Like, dimensions aren't just perspectives. They are the view, they are the information space that you can observe when you're looking at either a constraint, like, you know, the present moment. You can never escape the present moment, so it's a constraint. Or when you're looking at a degree of freedom, like the future. Yeah. These are dimensions. Dimensions aren't this weird, like, abstract, mystical thing. They're just perspectives. And so then this 6 is the sum of the center. So 4 plus 6 plus 4 is 14. It's 14-dimensional observers. How's everybody doing? Where's everyone? Here. You have to do what's best for you. Everything is best. Evening is best for most people, I think. I'm speaking from PCT. Okay. Pacific Coast time. Okay. Yeah, well, I'm going to be streaming on the evening. On Instagram. Maybe, you know what I can do? Maybe I can stream to Instagram and YouTube at the same time. I never thought of that. Like, that's kind of sounds like it makes sense. So maybe I'll go live at 9 p.m. tonight on here and on Instagram. It's actually a great idea. Like, that's a great idea. I still might want to do like some type of midday stream because you know, just like it, but maybe that won't be the everyday one. Maybe it will be better if it's at night, because the 6 a.m. thing that I did the other day is not going to happen again. But there was tons of interaction on my Instagram last night, like way late, until like 12:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So that's like what, 3 a.m. Eastern Time. So yeah, I mean, it seems like this is not the best time for people. So, how long have we been streaming? Anybody know? Whoa, what's going on? Let's see. On YouTube. Okay, 2 watching. And we've been streaming for an hour and a half. Does anybody have any other questions or have anything they want to talk about? Otherwise, I'm probably going to call it, and I'll be back at 9 p.m. on my Instagram and on here. I'm going to stream simultaneously, so you can choose what you would want to see, because I know Instagram is just, sometimes it's nice. Yeah, an hour and 24 minutes. Thank you. So, like I said, if there's anything else you guys want to talk about, any other questions you have, let me know. Otherwise, I am going to call the stream, and I will be back at 9 p.m. I think that's a good time. Works better than 8, I think. Maybe I should start at 8, because it went till like really late. So would 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time be better than 9? What do you think of syntactic operators in the CTMU? Is that like... What is a syntactic operator? Is that like a cellular automata, essentially? Is it like you are a syntactic operator of the universe? Is that what that is? I don't really get, like I said, guys, I don't get into other people's work. I just like look enough to see whether or not I can see whether or not they get it. And then I'm like, okay, cool, he gets it. But nobody gets it and is able to communicate well yet. And I believe that I'm going to change that, because of the 4 primary perspectives of inside, outside, separate, and oneness, which allow you to build, then I deduced, I guess, they are going to be the backbone of philosophy, the backbone of physics, the backbone of objective mathematics. They're going to be the backbone of making sense of everything outside of relativity, but still within multiplicity, which is where we needed to get to, and we couldn't do it because we didn't have the words. And everybody started making up their own words. You can't make up your own words, guys. Like, you have to put it in a framework people get. But inside, outside, separate, and oneness are the 4 primary perspectives. The fundamental objects of information. Yeah, so like, in other words, the elementary quanta. Okay, this is that in my model. The quantum of consciousness. It is a calculative structure that results in a self-reflection. So it's basically it's a calculative knot of consciousness. So this structure, it is a hadron, like a proton and a neutron. It is even almost maybe it's not a quark, but it is definitely a proton and a neutron are this, an atom is this, a molecule is this, a cell is this, an organism is this, family and caste and nation, which is a universe, is this. So like, this is what you're talking about. In my model, this is that. A quantum of consciousness, or quantum of cognition. If you follow the CTMU, it's the cognitive theoretic model of the universe. That's correct. But I don't think that even that name, first of all, like I said before, Chris Langan is so intelligent that he struggles, I think, to bring it down to a level that people can understand. And I do think you can do that. I don't think that it's just too complicated for the layman. It's not. It's just difficult when you don't have the 4 primary perspectives to build from. But when you do, which is what I built this from, then you get the 6 fundamental perspectives. So oneness breaks down into oneness without, oneness within, and singularity. And then you have inside, outside, and separate. So you have like oneness going to the center here. And this is all calculating. And it's showing the growth and interaction of information to the point of a self-reflection. And that's because this is, on the left, is all adding, which is, I call it stacking or ascension, essentially, of information. It's the addition is the adding of information that wasn't previously there. And this is multiplication. And multiplication is the replication of information that is already there. So like when a cell replicates, and you have lots of cells, this is multiplication. But when cells form into an organism, and you get something stacked on top of that multiplicity, that is addition, literally manifesting in growth of consciousness. So this structure is that, and then this structure is used to, form this structure, which is the universe. And this is a calculative model of it right here. It's all calculating all of this. And you can see if I change this to, equals 1/3 or something like that, all these numbers will change. And because it's a calculative model, it's not this isn't nonsense that I'd just put in. There we go. So interesting. So yeah, that is the universe, but it's made of these, and this is what you're talking about. And a quantum of consciousness makes sense to people. People are like, oh, a quantum of consciousness? Okay, I get that. But like, when somebody's like a syntactic operator, it's like, and this is not taking away from Chris Langan. That guy is, it's funny because when I was in college, I loved science my entire life, but I was an atheist and I wasn't into this stuff and like physics too much. I would listen to like Stephen Hawking's Into the Universe, but I didn't understand, where string theory came from or anything like that. I just trusted him, and he actually was a kind of a crappy physicist. But basically, I remember Chris Langan like blew up, and I was like, he's that most intelligent man in the world. Like, oh my gosh, I want to know what that guy thinks. And I looked up, and he had a theory of everything, and I hadn't seen a theory of everything before that, other than string theory, and I didn't understand either. And I was like, okay, I want to understand his CTMU, cognitive theoretic model of the universe. It didn't make sense to me even when I read it, the name of it, and then I started trying to read the CTMU, and none of it made any sense. So I was like, dang, that sucks. And so I just abandoned it, and years goes on, and I graduate college, get a job, move out to California. Years go by, and I have this like theophany, and then I have like a physics epiphany, and I end up being able to realize that like all of this is now intuitive to me a little bit. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go back and like read a little bit of Chris Langan's CTMU and see if it makes sense now, because I bet it will. And I went back, I started reading, and I was like, yep. I mean, as soon as I read the title, I was like, yep. Like, it made perfect sense. I didn't really read it, but like I skimmed over the basic ideas, and they're very similar to mine, if not the same. And but I mean, this is all about perspective. Perspective gives you power. I said yesterday I'm a shitty dancer, but I'm a great martial artist. They're the same moves. It's just because my focus is different in each one, so my perspective is different, and that literally can make the difference between whether or not you are shit or whether or not you are really good. And same thing, my IQ didn't become 180 or 200 like Chris Langan. It's nowhere close to that, but my perspective shifted at some point in those years, and I went from not understanding a thing he was talking about to understanding basically everything that he's talking about. His terms are terms that I don't know, but like a syntactic operator, I call it a quantum of consciousness. So a quantum of consciousness is a distributive unit of reality. Yeah, it's like the building blocks, the fundamental building blocks that occur on all scales. It's the fractal structure. That's what it is, essentially. Agreed regarding Langan, interesting thoughts. Yeah, he's brilliant. A lot of people don't want to talk to him because he said some things that politically aren't, like, acceptable to a lot of people. But, like, and I do disagree. I actually think that, like, some of Chris Langan's statements regarding, like, certain things do indicate, like, a breakdown in whether or not he applies his theory to like that, but at least in narrative. But that doesn't mean he doesn't actually get it, but he might have just been mad. But I would love to speak to Chris Langan, and I will invite him on here one day. I'm in his like private Facebook group to discuss this, and it's funny because I keep getting banned from Eric Weinstein's geometric unity private groups, even though I'm like the only one that understands geometric unity, and that's in the groups. Like self-admittedly, like they don't understand. They don't admit that I understand it, but I know that I understand it. But like when I go to Chris Langan's CTMU private groups, like everybody loves my work. It's very funny, like because Chris is right. But I would love to have him on here and talk. I will ask him to come on at some point. I don't know if he will, but he's definitely invited. So are addition and multiplication symmetric? They're like orthogonal, if you know what that means. It's like they are symmetrical, but they're also like a shifted almost. So what's interesting is that when you get into objective mathematics, you realize that addition and subtraction are the same thing. They're not opposites. They're the same. I'm going to put chapstick on. I know it's like kind of like, I don't know, embarrassing, but like it's really dry. But basically, when you're thinking about like a cell, okay, when you're just looking at quantizing everything, and in relativistic mathematics, addition and subtraction are opposites, but and multiplication and division are opposites. But when you're in a quantum singularity structure, think about it like a cell. So how does a cell multiply? By dividing. So division is multiplication. How does God add creation to existence? By subtracting some of his energy from himself and putting it towards creation. So addition is subtraction. Division is multiplication. And even then, dividing his energy is what is necessary in order to basically like segment his information in order to do addition and subtraction. So they're almost like all the same at this level, but just like they're the exact same as this. So addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division are my primary perspectives manifested in mathematics. And what's interesting is that like addition and subtraction are like the same, and you need one to have the other. And same thing with division and multiplication, but also division and subtraction are almost the same thing. They're like the link between the two. You can see that in this structure. So like, inside, outside, separate, and oneness. You need outside in order to have inside. You need inside in order to have outside. And you need separateness in order to have inside or outside. So this is this kind of thing where there's like three of them that are weirdly linked, and then one of them is the sum of them all. And this is addition is the sum of them all. And multiplication, division, and subtraction are inside, outside, and separate. Whereas addition would be oneness. So this is why CTMU could never catch on, is because it's just too difficult to understand because there's too many proprietary definitions. But it's not wrong. It's correct. I mean, it's the closest theory to mine. Even theologically, like in the very details of, people involved, like Jesus and stuff like that. That's like my perspective. It's not part of this theory, but my personal perspective is like aligned with Chris Langan's theological personal perspective. So he's the closest person to me in this game. But geometric unity is easy to see in certain ways that it is that's part of my structures as well, and it's also easy to see E8 in my theory, and it's also easy to see the same structures that basically Stephen Wolfram is making, but even though he's using like shapes that are forming tetrahedrons, and I am using words that are descriptions, because I'm not a computer programmer, I'm a philosopher. But you need this, because this language can now be applied to everything, like making sense of everything. We need to get out of relativity. It is driving us insane. I'm not even joking. Like, you can't have just relativity for everything, because then you have endlessness for everything, and if there's endlessness, there's no ability to make sense and quantize the world. You have to quantize the world and put it into a hierarchical structure. And that starts with these. This is probably the most important. It is the most important discovery that I've made, is just these 4 words. Inside, which is separate and oneness. Outside, which is separate from oneness. Separate, which is outside of oneness. And oneness, which is outside of separateness. And they go on to make the quantum of consciousness, which is also a huge discovery. And then they go on to the verse model, which is also a huge discovery. But it's hard to contextualize the other 2 models, like the quantum of consciousness and the verse model, without further explanation. This, though, the 4 primary perspectives, if there's one takeaway that everybody here should really remember, if you want to start understanding my work, you have to start here. This is the beginning. And as I do these streams, I'm learning like what's important to prioritize and tell people about, and tell people what to understand and focus on first, because I'm sharing so much. But this is where you start. They allow for you to describe relationships within multiplicity while also not being trapped by an unquantized, relativistic, smooth perspective, which is an illusion. And, you have pure oneness, and then you have smooth, infinite relativity, and in between those two, you have relationships within multiplicity that are not within relativity, and that is all governed by this. If you want to make sense of politics, right here. If you want to make sense of morality, right here. If you want to make sense of physics, mathematics, language, right here. It is like the key to everything. Not joking. It has to be. I mean, this is going to be the backbone of philosophy moving forward. Philosophy is just lost in nonsense. I asked this philosophy guy, what's the definition of philosophy in 1 sentence? And he said, if I could define it in 1 sentence, it wouldn't be philosophy. I'm like, bro, bullshit. Bull. You love the smell of your own farts right now. Like, that's what that's really, like, he told me philosophy is meaningless, and also you can't define it in 1 sentence, because if you could, it wouldn't be philosophy. Okay, so it's useless and overly complicated uselessness, but you're going to dedicate your life to it. You're either an idiot or you're an idiot, if that's true. But philosophy, when it gets back to, objectivity, which this is how we do it, then we can actually start making sense of it. And if you want the 1 sentence definition of philosophy, it is the study of perspective. It's my dog. It's funny because I took 1 philosophy class in Alma College, and it was the class I wanted to take the least. And Oh, you guys aren't even seeing what I'm seeing. This right here. And it was the ethics of healthcare. And basically, I did not want to take it. It just fulfilled like a requirement. But I took it and I was so good at it. It was ridiculous. Like it was the class and subject I was better at than anything else. Like if you were on the live stream yesterday, you know that like I'm sitting in a room filled with reptiles, which is like my passion. And there's like 60 reptiles in here, I think. And I'll show you guys like on Instagram tonight, probably. But like I'm better at, like I'm a savant at that. I'm better at philosophy than I am at that, which is wild. Like I wouldn't describe myself as like savantish in anything other than like reptiles and philosophy. But I don't read any philosophers. Like Michael Knowles. I don't know if you know who that is, but he like has like a show for PragerU and the Daily Wire, and I used to like talk to him sometimes, and once we were getting, cigars and talking about philosophy, and he would just keep referencing, as our Uncle Aristotle used to say, as our, Uncle Plato used to say. It's like, I didn't read any of those guys. I have no desire to, because everybody else that's studying everybody else's work is ending up in a relativistic mess. Why would I do that? So I started completely from scratch, and I found a much better way of doing things, which is starting from this. It makes perfect sense. Awesome. Addition. Wow, people are starting to tune in. I might just continue. Addition is unary. Unary. Guys, I Google everything that you guys like. Don't try and trick me and tell me to like Google something that I don't want to Google with, if it's some word I don't know, because you guys ask me all these things. Have you heard of this person? Have you, do you know this? And I don't, because I don't read other people's work very much. Unary is only one operand or a single input. Yeah, this is reality. Yeah. Do you know what the first model I ever made was? Is this. This was 5 years ago when I first was trying to map my own consciousness and understand AI, like whether or not it was going to enslave us. Is I made this decision tree right here. And it's just showing like, if this, then this, if this, then this. And it basically ended up mapping the process of thinking. And I also realized that the process of thinking externalized is the scientific method. So basically, like, there is a very specific process to thinking. There isn't multiple ways to think. There's one way to think. And you have to take that which you assume to already be true. You have to then assume the opposite of that is true. So if you don't believe in God, if you're going to think about God, you don't look for evidence that he doesn't exist if you already think he doesn't exist. You assume the opposite of your default status, which is, non-existence, is true. So you assume existence, and then you look for evidence of existence. And you test against it by like looking for evidence and trying to, see if there's holes in inconsistencies in that evidence. But you don't just look for evidence of that which you already assume, which is the problem with skepticism. Like these skeptics, like Michael Shermer or whatever that guy's name is, who's just constantly like the most boring person in the world, just telling everybody that everything is fake. That guy doesn't know how to think. I hate that stupid mentality of skepticism. It's like, oh, I'm a skeptic, so like I'm actually like more reasonable than you. It's like, no, that's not how this works. We've stopped knowing how to think. And there's a very specific order of operations to thinking. It's not just like any visualization. But yeah, I mean, when you look at my calculative verse model. I've broken it down into, 4, but really it's... What's going on here? Really it is 1, And that, literally from there, calculates everything. So, like, this is all calculative, this is all calculative, this is all calculative. It's showing that when the universe divides itself by 3 and puts 1/3 of its energy towards creation, you can have a stable creation because creation can fit inside of what is left over. So 1/3 can fit inside of 2/3. You need that to happen in order to have stability. Once you have stability reached, it creates creation, and then it repeats. But it's all coming from 1. So there's 4 perspective. You go from perspective of oneness or singularity to perspective of duality, and then from that, there's a perspective of triality, and then from there there's a quadratic perspective, and that is where stability is reached, both outside of creation, which is why the tetragrammaton is what it is and stuff, and why the primary perspectives are what they are, and then here results in a 4. And when you assign each perspective in the quantum of consciousness a value, and you, instead of having it be calculative, but you're just showing the perspectives as represented by a numerical value, it starts with 4 and it ends with 4, and then it starts again with 4, and then it ends again with 4. So because the end is actually the beginning of the next one, which you can clearly see, the end here is the beginning of this one. So 4 and then 4 and then 4. It's very consistent. This was not, it was a lot of work, and it was very difficult, but it's not as crazy as, like, these physicists are making it out to be for the sake of their egos. Eight is great. Have you been on anyone's podcast? I look forward to the one with... 8 is great. Okay, well then I'll probably do 8 p.m. tonight. Pacific Standard Time. I have been on one person's podcast. I'm probably going to be going on the Theory of Everything with Kurt. Theories of Everything with Kurt. I forgot the guy's name. This channel. I've been talking to him. I need to get back to him, but... Theories of Everything. Kurt. This guy. Kurt J. Munjal. J. Munjal. Probably be going on this guy's channel pretty soon. I have been on nobody's podcast talking about this stuff, but I was on... I have been on Owen Benjamin's live streams a while back when they were more common. If you know who that is, he's a comedian, but he's got very controversial and is banned from a lot of social media now. But good man, went through things that everybody goes through things. But when you're famous and you go through things, it has consequences that are more than when you're not famous and you go through things. But I went on his... I will be, again, if there's any bears listening, at some point I will do that again. And I'll be going on this guy's... I'll be talking to Millennial Rabbi soon, and I will be talking to this guy, Kurt. If there's anyone else that you recommend, let me know. I'd love to go on Brian Keating's podcast. Brian is a friend of mine, and but I don't think that he would have me on right now. He doesn't understand my perspective, and there's too big of a risk to him, I think. And I understand it. I'm not an idiot. From his perspective, it looks like I'm probably too risky to have on, because it looks like he would have a crazy person on, potentially. But eventually, I think that will change. I mean, he went on this guy's channel, so did many other people. So, but that guy invited me on. So I think that eventually I can go on Brian Keating's. I hope to be able to go on Brian Keating's Into the Impossible, but I know that that is not something that is going to happen in the immediacy. It'd be awesome to get on the portal, but you know, I don't know if Eric's gonna agree to that. He does know I'm right, though. He does know I'm right. Or that I at least understand. One valued. Singular. Yes. 4 fundamental perspectives might map into the 4 fundamental forces of physics. They do. They do. Gravity is oneness. And the electromagnetism and the strong force and the weak force are... the weak force is separateness, and gosh, I'm like struggling to think about it, but inside you have oneness. I'm so used to just doing things in Excel, like it helps you organize everything. Separateness, inside, outside, and what it is gravity. This is the weak force, I think. This is I'm trying to think. So this would probably be the strong force. And this would probably be electromagnetism. That's my current assumption. But they do map. It's obvious that gravity is oneness. By the way, the graviton that everybody's looking at, it is the universe. Like, I don't even think that the Higgs exists. And I know other physicists that think that too, but they said it kind of privately and they haven't said it publicly, and I'm not going to out them because they said it privately, but there are notable people in this field that do not believe that the Higgs exists, and I don't think that it exists either. It doesn't match up. It breaks the symmetry of the Standard Model. In order to preserve the symmetry of the Standard Model, actually, you don't have this small unit of gravity, or like gravitons within the universe. You just make the entire universe the graviton. It is the carrier particle of gravity. It's the graviton. The universe carries gravity. The process of thinking externalized is the scientific method. Exactly. Yes, exactly. So, another interesting thing regarding these 4 primary perspectives. It's not 4 fundamental perspectives. For a while it was, but I've changed it. It's the 4 primary perspectives. Then it morphs into the 6 fundamental perspectives. They're different. It's important to differentiate them. So, plus primary perspective is an alliteration, which is cool. So this looks like my universe model, and it's called a connectria, and it is it's like a little like kinetic sculpture. And what's interesting is it looks like my universe model, and it models my universe model, and it explains things in physics that much better than, you know, listening to Sean Carroll trying to tell you how, like, a cat is dead and alive at the same time in a box, which doesn't make sense. So, this is superposition with 4 primary perspectives explained. So, I'm going to ask you 4 questions about this. Do you see the square? Yes, you see the square. Do you see the squares? Okay. Multiplicity of squares. Yes. Do you see the wave right there? Yep. See that it forms a wave. And do you see the double helix right there in the center? So the questions that you ask, and there's 4 of them, determine what you see. Is it a quantum? Or is it multiple quanta? Or is it a wave of causality moving through a multiplicity of quanta? Or is it a self-referencing chain that is a double helix? It's all 4 at the same time. So are you. You are a being, which is a human being, which is a quantum of consciousness. You are composed of quanta of consciousness, which are cells and molecules and atoms and hadrons. So you are singularity and multiplicity, and you are a wave. So every time you think and you're like, okay, my arm's going to move, and you move, you're creating a wave across yourself. So like this is a wave across itself if this is the universe. And you also have DNA, which is literally a self-referencing chain of information that is, the chain that, all those levels communicate through. So this pattern is everywhere. There's one pattern. So let me know if there's any other questions. If not, I'm going to call it, but I am going to go live on this channel and on Instagram tonight at 8 p.m. And I'm going to probably try and do that every day. And if there's, this doesn't seem like it's the best time for people, and that's fine. But, 8 p.m. is probably much better. And it's better for me too. I'm like way more, this is actually a pretty decent time, but like 8 p.m. is like where I'm a night owl. So like I'm waking up at 8 p.m. Not really, but like that's when my mind is like really starting to wake up. Thanks for the visualization and explanation. No problem. Thank you for watching and asking questions and engaging. It's awesome to have everybody here that's been listening and engaging. This is definitely a smaller crowd than yesterday, so it's definitely not the best time, but I still appreciate everybody that's here. I don't just, stream for the sake of, I want to stream while it's convenient for everybody, but like I also know people can go back and listen to it, but lives are kind of like tough to re-listen to. So if there's no more questions, I'm going to call it. I'm going to give you guys like 2 minutes because there's a lag for me when you ask a question. By the time you hear me ask you if you have any more questions, and then you ask a question, then it gets back to me, there is like a little bit of a lag. So I'm going to give you guys a couple more minutes to ask questions, any final ones, and then I'm going to call it. But if you want to tune in later, you can, and we'll get into way more stuff. But I'm going to save it for when there's, it's a better time for people. So that is that. Like I said, this is going to be censored. I don't want to like speak it into existence, but if I continue to talk about like the moral implications of a theory of everything, which there are, this will probably be censored on social media. So look at my website, sentientsingularity.com. Sign up for my email list. I will not spam you. I will probably never send you anything unless I get banned from social media. And if you want to keep up with this work, or if you want to support in any way, there is like a way of supporting. But I do want to do an experiment. I'm not going to announce what it is right now, but like that is an eventual goal of this, and that does take some funding. So, but right now, this is brand new. I'm just trying to get it out there for people to start engaging. That's like awesome. It's got me so excited. So anyways, with that, peace, and I will see some of you tonight, or not, but I will be streaming later tonight. So have a good one.